Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Breaking news on day 40 of the United Auto Workers strike against General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. Yesterday was Stellantis in Sterling Heights assembly. Today, over 5,000 workers at General Motors Arlington assembly plant are going on strike on day 40. This is a massive development in the UAW strike. This is one of General Motors' most profitable full-size truck plants down in Arlington. This plant makes the full-size Chevrolet Suburbans and Tahoes, GMC Yukons, and Cadillac Escalades. So this is one of General Motors' biggest money makers. And I would say that the UAW now is going figuratively full guns a-blazing. They are not holding back, hitting GM, Ford, and Stellantis at its most profitable plants. Let's just take a look as workers walk out. Again, over 5,000 workers. So they are now on strike down in Arlington. They join in recent days the workers at Sterlington Assembly. And of course, a week ago was Kentucky at Ford's truck plant. This is kind of predictable. If you watch Sean Fain on Friday, he not so subtly threatened the companies that if they didn't dramatically increase their offers, this was going to happen. Let's take a listen to his words from Friday.
So what's the punchline? This week, GM and Stellantis got the message loud and clear. They hurried to catch up with Ford. But GM in particular is worrying. They tell us they need a two-tier wage progression because they expect to do a lot of hiring. At the same time, they threaten product and won't give us the right to strike over plant closures. I wonder how members at Arlington and Flint Truck feel about that. Stellantis has its issues as well. They're still at a 4-year progression. They're still at just $20 for temp workers. They've rejected all increases to retiree pay. I know plenty of members at Sterling Heights Assembly Plant and in Kokomo, Indiana, who aren't going to like that.
I wonder how members at Arlington and Flint Truck feel about that. Well, members at Arlington Truck have told you because they're now on strike, over 5,000 workers. I should say on day 40, we are now over 45,000 United Auto Workers are on strike all over the country. And if you listen to Fain, the folks at Flint Truck, which is GM, should be on call, I guess. Monday was Sterlington Assembly. Tuesday is the workers at GM in Arlington. So who knows? Maybe Flint Truck will be tomorrow. They are not waiting a week. They are now waiting 24 hours to hit various companies of the big three where it hurts. And good, because these companies, let's remember, the United Auto Workers, the corporate media paints Fain to be, Trotsky and kind of like a socialist communist. UAW gave these three companies their demands 6 weeks before the expiration of contract. The companies came in at the last minute pretending that, they had been making offers the whole time. No, they hadn't. They had come in pretty much right before the contract. They all offered piss poor offers, and the proof is in the pudding. That's what you get. I want to show you this plant in particular is having record production. So they are having record production at this plant, but not quite record contract or wages for the workers. This is from the Dallas Morning News. GM Arlington plant cranks out 34,000 SUVs, setting a 70-year production record. This is just from April of this year. More than 34,000 vehicles rolled out of General Motors Arlington Assembly Plant in March, setting a 70-year record for the most vehicles produced in a month in North Texas. Arlington Assembly Plant Executive Director John Urbanek credited the plant's more than 5,600 workers for the production record. Quote, challenges such as supply disruptions are overcome by the team on a daily and hourly basis. Urbanek said in a statement, our celebration of this milestone is not just about the number, it's about the people who build consistent quality into every SUV that we produce. Oh, yes, you love your people so much, you're willing to provide them, pretty much depressed wages, a convoluted, ridiculous tier system. You don't respect your retirees. I could go on. Across the country, GM sales were up 18% during the first 3 months of this year. So this plant, production records. So hopefully the company is paying attention and now are going to give record contracts as the UAW has been demanding. If you missed it, let me just give you an update here on where the three companies stand as far as wages and other things they're offering, which is clearly not enough, considering the UAW is now on strike at some of the most profitable plants for the companies. Let's take a listen.
So let's look at where we are across the big three. Under wages, at all three companies as of this week, we have a 23% raise on the table. That's up from 20% just a few days ago and up from 9% when they made their first offer. The companies keep saying they hit their limit, and then their limit went up, and we think there's more ground to gain. On the wage tiers, at all three companies, we have killed massive wage tiers. This is a major win, and it's been a major priority. We believe in equal pay for equal work. At Stellantis, Mopar workers will make production wages. At GM, the CCA and GMCH will make production wages. At Ford, Sterling Axle and Rawsonville will make production wages. This represents huge raises for these members and will end the toxic wage tier divide among these members. Looking at the wage progression, we started these negotiations with a ridiculous 8-year progression. At Ford, we got down to 3 years where it was in the mid-90s. At Stellantis, they're still stuck on a 4-year progression. And at GM, they want the 2-tier progression with 3 years for all current employees and 4 years for future hires. Obviously, that's not going to fly. If Ford can do it, so can GM and Stellantis, and we are not adding a new tier. With cost of living, at Ford, we have won cost of living back to where it was in 2009, something we were told was impossible. At GM, we're really close with some tweaks left to make. And at Stellantis, we've still got a deficient COLA on the table that doesn't kick in for the first year. In regards to profit sharing, at all three companies, we've been able to beat back concessionary profit sharing proposals. At Ford, we've actually enhanced it, and temp workers with 90 days will now be eligible. At GM, we've maintained profit sharing but added eligibility for temps with 1,000 hours on the job. At Stellantis, we've maintained but haven't yet won eligibility for temp workers. In looking at temps, we're fighting to end the abuse of so-called temp workers who make low wages and have fewer rights and little security. At Ford, we've raised the temp wage to $21 an hour and won conversion of all current temps with 90 days worked or 90 days in. At GM, we've also hit $21 an hour for temps, with all the temps who have a year in getting immediately converted to full-time. At Stellantis, the temp wage is still at $20 an hour, and we're going to convert thousands of temps. At all three, we're still negotiating a pathway for future temps to get converted to end the abuse of these members. We're fighting hard to win language across the big three that will make sure that temporary work is just that, temporary. Looking at job security, one of our biggest proposals on job security has been the right to strike over plant closures. They can't keep closing plants without any consequences. At Ford and Stellantis, we've won that right. we will keep our jobs secure with the most powerful weapon we have, the strike threat. At GM, the company still won't grant it. Looking at work-life balance, at all three companies, we've won additional holiday, the Juneteenth holiday, and 2 weeks of paid parental leave, a first for our members at the Big Three. There's still room to grow there. In retirement, we know we need to fix our broken retirement system at the Big Three. All three companies are now offering a $3 increase to the pension multiplier and boosting the 401k through GM, although GM lags behind. Ford and Stellantis are offering 9.5% employer contribution to the 401k, and GM is offering just 8%. For current retirees, Ford is offering a $250 annual lump sum payment, and GM just a one-time $1,000 lump sum payment. Stellantis isn't offering anything on that front.
So there you have it. GM 23% increase, which, as I explained in other videos, might sound good. The media makes it sound good. It's not. These workers gave back about 10% of their wages in 2008, 2009. When you factor in inflation, which is hovering between 15 and 20% at its worst, they'd basically be breaking even, maybe slightly getting a little bit more compared to where they were at 13 years ago. So GM is going to have to improve that offer, I would say closer to 28 to 30% if they want a deal. And what a shame. I mean, General Motors, when you think of it, the birthplace of the middle class in Flint and Detroit, GM was, one of the pioneers of the middle class, employed, hundreds of thousands of people. And their message to their retirees, many of whom, maybe you're watching, some of you, helped build GM, helped build this country, is, we'll give you a $3 increase to your pensions. Hey, here's a $1,000 lump sum payment, but if you died, your spouse is not eligible. How's that for respecting the workers who built your company and this country? And by the way, I don't know, maybe it's just a coincidence, but this Arlington strike just happened to have happened. This General Motors Arlington strike just happened to have happened on the same morning that General Motors announced its earnings for the last financial quarter. And shockingly, their earnings have risen despite the strike. Oh, these companies, they have no more to give, I tell you. Yet they're still making evil, filthy amounts of money. General Motors earnings grew last quarter, even as the company took a $200 million hit from the first 2 weeks of a strike by the UAW. The company's earnings per share rose to $2.28, up from $2.25 in the past quarter. Analysts surveyed had forecast earnings would decline sharply to $1.88 per share. Investors look closely at that measure when judging financial performance. GM's adjusted net income slipped to $3.1 billion from $3.3 billion. I would love my adjusted income to slip that low. But the company boosted its earnings per share over the course of the year by buying back its own stock. Of course, a controversial tactic critics say artificially inflates company share price without improving a company's finances. Not only does it do that, but it artificially raises the CEO of the filthy, filthy rich CEO, Mary Barra, who is making close to $30 million. If you forget, let's listen to her explanation for why she should be making nearly $30 million.
The union is asking for a 40% wage increase over 4 years. They're asking for that in part because they say CEOs like yourself, leading the big three, are making those kind of pay increases over the course of the last 4 years. You've seen a 34% pay increase in your salary. You make almost $30 million. Why should your workers not get the same type of pay increases that you're getting leading the company?
Well, if you look at compensation, my compensation, 92% of it is based on performance of the company. I think one of the strong aspects of the way our compensation for our represented employees is designed is not only are we putting a 20% increase on the table, we have profit sharing. So when the company does well, everyone does well. And for the last several years, that's resulted in record profit sharing for our represented employees. And I think you have to look at the whole compensation package, not only 20% increase in gross wage, but also the profit sharing aspect of it, world-class health care, and there's several other features. So we think we have a very competitive offer on the table, and that's why we want to get back there and get this done.
But if you're getting a 34% pay increase over 4 years and you're offering 20% to employees right now, do you think that's fair?
Well, I think when you look at the overall structure and the fact that 92% is based on performance, and you look at what we've been doing of sharing in the profitability when the company does well, I think we've got a very compelling offer on the table, and that's the focus I have right now.
When she says the company performance, her performance, she's talking about the stock price, which they are rigging, which, by the way, was illegal. Stock buybacks were illegal back in the day before Reagan made it legal. I digress. Company said that the strike costed $200 million in the first 2 weeks of the quarter, but those costs have risen since then with $600 million in costs. Yeah, spare me. Get the violin. So this is a big deal. Again, the UAW is now on strike at some of Ford's most profitable truck plants, Stellantis's most profitable truck plants, and GM's most profitable truck plants. And they still have other major truck plants to go on strike. As you heard Fain say, I wonder what the folks in Flint Truck and Assembly think about what GM is doing or not doing. So the UAW still has a lot of cards to play. Expect the media propaganda to amp up and for them to be blaming the UAW for economic damage and yada, yada, yada. I'm sure Jim Cramer's head is going to explode on CNBC at some point today. Gotta love it. We'll stay on it.